that actually told you about our services, correct?
Yeah, that was Shasta Elementary, and I can't remember their name for the life of me. But yeah, when I just moved out here in January, and we kind of had a rough time. We were living out of a motel and just trying to find work and make ends meet. And yeah, someone at Shasta Elementary had recommended that I try to seek resources through IYS. And so yeah, I was basically a client of IYS and was kind of receiving help. And then I ended up getting offered a job, and things kind of took off from there. It's been a great experience.
So do you think that, and the reason I ask that is because I think every conversation I've had so far today is really talked about the importance of that. And do you think that in, starting off as a recipient of those services and now being an employee, giving those services out has helped you be able to connect more, further with your crew leaders and your crew members, and not only offering them the service that is Work2Learn, but being able to say, hey, we have additional services if you need it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I try to stress that to our crew leaders as well, that even though our department is Work2Learn, we are IYS. We have all these other services that we can provide if they notice any of our youth or young adults in our program that are having trouble in a particular area, that we potentially have the ability to help them with that. And even if IYS itself doesn't have those specific resources, we have so many partners within the community that are just awesome.
Yeah,
it's great being able to have that and just have the knowledge of those resources to provide to them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And so the other part of that I would ask too, I know I've only been here since February, but that still, it's almost a full year that you've been with the organization. And that's a lot of people to connect with in a year's time. And so I'm just wondering, I guess, if you've had any moment with crew leaders, crew members, even the youth at Exodus House that you worked with, that you had an aha moment where you were like, oh yeah, this is why I work here.
Oh, I've had a few, but you'll have to give me a minute. I gotta think of a good one.
No, you're good. Give me a moment to cough and drink.
I think one of the biggest ones was not necessarily within Work2Learn, but going out to some of our kind of outreach events. One of the more recent ones out at KCC, I had someone come up to us and just talk about how he had been in he had utilized our drop-in center a lot back when we had a drop-in center. He just talked about how positive of an experience it was for him, and how just it was just a huge thing for him. And just this one thing from years ago, just stuck in this guy's mind. It's he looked like he was in his 20s now, but as a teenager, he was able to utilize the drop-in center, and it just made such a big difference that he wanted to actually come up to us and talk to us about it. And that's kind of what we're hoping for. We're hoping for positive experiences for these youth that can perhaps change their trajectory a little bit, especially in our at-risk community.
Yeah. Well, I think it's definitely important that we have those people who recognize the impact that we've made even in their lives, and are able to come up and are willing to come up and talk about it and say, hey, this is a really cool thing that you did for me, thank you. And we appreciate it so much, just because you can feel it, you can feel that positiveness come off of them, and their experience adds to our experience. So when you are out of the site, when you're out of the office and you are working with the youth in the Work2Learn program, and the young adults, what does a day in the life of Work2Learn look like from start to finish?
We will use the OCC crews as kind of an example, since they're the ones that are doing the work right now. Right at this moment, they're usually getting into work around 8:30. They get to the hub on East Main. They load up the trucks with the various equipment they need. They get out to the job site, and they get to work. They depending on what it is, they have their chainsaws, their weed eaters, various other tools. They clear out the land. We make sure they take relatively frequent breaks. Definitely, we're not trying to overwork anybody. But they stay out there all day most of the time, depending, like if there's bad weather or something, they'll come back to the hub. At the end of the day, they come back in, unload. We've kind of created a safe space, a comfortable space in the hub for them to just have as an area where they can relax at the end of the day before they go home. On days that, like inclement weather days, we have trainings available. We try to bring in different guest speakers or put on particular trainings. We've done first aid CPR, we've done financial literacy, we've had guest speakers, just career exploration type stuff. Over the winter when it gets really bad, they're going to be doing like a basic firefighting training and chainsaw training, more advanced than the basic what they've done so far. We just on top of the work we do, trying to be productive for the community, we're also trying to provide those experiences, the learning necessaries to kind of jumpstart a career potentially.
Yeah, definitely. In your own words, can you explain why you feel what IYS does is important?
Honestly, it's something that's thrown around, and it's even in our logo. It's hope. We offer hope to youth, young adults, and families who may not have a lot of hope in their lives right now. I know, from personal experience, I was feeling pretty hopeless when IYS came into my life, and it helped turn things around in a lot of ways, and I want to be there and provide that for others.
And I think the other thing that I wanted to touch on is, in IYS, we all know that IYS is a nonprofit, but for someone who maybe doesn't know what a nonprofit is or what it does, can you maybe give some insight as to what that means to be a nonprofit?
Sure. We are not, we're not trying to make money here. We're trying to help, and all of our funding, a lot of it comes from grants right now, and we have some dedicated people in our community that donate as well. It's really awesome that they do that. But yeah, anything that goes to us goes into our programs, goes into our funds that keeps us open, that keeps us going and providing these opportunities for the community.
Yeah, and with that, I have a follow-up question, sort of a leading question into my next question, which is, why do you think that people should donate to IYS?
Because it is such a good program for the community. I mean, our main focus is helping youth, but those youth end up, growing up into the adults and become the community leaders and whatnot in the future. And we need to foster them so that they have that hope, they have that ability to want to go into these things and further the community in the future.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Do you have any last comments that you want to make?
Nothing in particular. I think we've covered it pretty well.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Nick. And I enjoyed interviewing you for Giving Tuesday.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, thank you. Cool.
All right. I hope that gives you
It was
enough.
painless. I am with the Work2Learn crew members and crew leaders. How are you guys all doing? How has your day been?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I know you guys started a new job today. How did that go?
Yes.
Good. It was.
Yes.
It's nice to change it up.
It was nice to change it up.
Yeah. It was a little simpler than we thought it was going to be, which was nice. Yeah. Made things go quick.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so you guys are sort of our off-season crews, which just means that you are going to sites that are running not just in the summertime. You guys have been working on a few different projects so far this fall. So what has that kind of been like? Can you guys kind of walk us through like what those projects look like?
Pretty much the same stuff as the summer, but colder.
But colder.
Yes. We're digging up a lot of snow because we're working on a site that has a lot of sagebrush in it. So we're having to get down the ground, dig up some snow, and cut the bottom of the sagebrush to be sure that we get all the chunks. But it's pretty simple. It's just cutting down stuff, but just a lot colder. Make sure you have a lot more layers on.
Yeah. Mostly like what he said. The only difficulty added is the snow cap. I mean, it bogs us down a little bit, but otherwise the work is the same. Get a little more wet, a little more cold.
Yeah, can you guys describe like kind of like what your work is like? Like we heard a little bit from Nick about, what do you guys do? Like, but he had a kind of overarching like, this is what all the crews do. But you guys have been doing very specific work. for the last few months. So what does that kind of look like?
So with the ODF crews, we work alongside ODF to do fuel reduction, kind of help out with them because that's what they do during the off season. So we go around to different properties and help homeowners clear 100-foot radius around their home to just kind of help with that fuel reduction, just in case there's any fire or anything. All those ladder fuels are gone, so that like all the trees are limbed up and we're not spreading that fire around and making sure everybody's safe.
Yeah, that's super cool. So can you tell me a little bit more about the project you guys just started? I mean, you just literally got your feet wet today. So what has that been like?
Today was just moving some brush piles that they already had previously laid out. This project, what we're doing, like what we started on today, is just kind of picking up where they left off and finishing that 100-foot defensible space for them. Other than that, that's been what most projects are doing. The only one that's different is the children project. So.
Yeah, and so with the project that we started today, like there's not really any bushes for anything for us to get, but there's a lot of trees for us to limb. There's a little bit of brush for us to cut down, but none of that sagebrush that we're dealing with up in Chiloquin, because basically up there it's about 20 acres of sagebrush and 5 acres of limbing trees. So
Yeah. And can you, because so I had the opportunity to go up with you guys a little bit and, you know, have a morning to figure out like what you guys kind of do. And one thing that I didn't quite get to ask or look at was the limbing part. So can you explain that a little bit? Like I saw Eli with a big chainsaw on a pole. And I was like, that looks like a death trap waiting to happen. Like, it scares me.
That thing's
but-
super nice, actually.
Yeah,
It's only a death trap if you don't know how to do it.
and I don't know how to do it, so that's what it's a death trap.
With limbing trees, more or less, you're trying to get less than 50% of the tree limbed, but you want it to be above your head by a minimum 2 feet, I think it was, we decided on.
yeah, it's kind of variant depending on the trees.
And
If
the height of the person cutting.
Yeah, if we've got enough space, like of healthy tree for us to cut up high enough to where it's possible for people to walk under, that's usually what we'll do. But if the trees are smaller and not tall enough yet, we'll only do 50%, just try and make sure that any of the ground brush, whatever that may be, isn't touching the limbs, because that's mainly what we're trying to stop, is the spread of, if something did catch on the ground, that it wouldn't spread to the trees.
Yeah, definitely. That's really cool. So what's the importance of that? Why do you guys do that?
It helps a lot when there's like wildfires or brush fires or anything like that. If it's going toward a home like that, if there's a lot of brush around it, it'll just kind of build up that heat, build up that fire all around the space that you're trying to protect, and it makes it a lot harder to stop that. But if you have kind of like a fire cut or like a spot where it's going to stop spreading toward the house, then there's a lot bigger chance that it'll be able to be a safe structure.
Awesome.
Yeah, it produces defensible space so firefighters can move in and fight a fire out from that space instead of waiting to create a fire break.
Yeah. That's a really cool. I think that's really cool, especially since like we live in like a high desert area where we have a lot of fires, and I'm always thinking like what happens when it comes closer to town, because we've had them all the way around the basin but never in the basin. So there's always that fear factor, and I think that's really cool work that you guys are doing to try to eliminate that fear factor from people's minds. So you guys go out and you do a lot of conservation work, but I know that there's been a few, knock on wood, but there's been a few days already where we've had a lot of snow and a lot of ice and a lot of unpermitting weather for being able to get out there and work. What do you guys do in those off times when the weather's just too bad for you to be able to go out and do that work?
There's a couple. It looked like you were gonna say something. Sorry. We do a couple of different things. There's a couple of different projects that we'll work on. We'll work on maintaining the hub, just making sure it's all clean and up for us to be using it, moving in and out all the time, brings in a lot of dirt back and forth. We'll also have trainings from time to time. We've got a training with ODF coming up next week, just basically about basics on chainsaws and all that fun stuff. They've got a couple other fun classes like intro to firefighting and stuff like, or fire, yeah, I think that's what it is, I'm not sure. But it's a 40-hour course that we'll be going through. They'll be getting us actually certified in using chainsaws as well. We also do just little in-house type of trainings where we all study a subject and then teach it to the class, and
You did that last week, right?
yeah, we made some PowerPoints, taught each other about just spark plugs and air filters and a bunch of different random things that relate to what we're doing on the job, and just kind of try and develop our skills that way.
Yeah, that's super cool, and it gives you guys, some of those soft job skills off the project, I should say. I was like, not off the job, because you're still on the job.
Yeah,
but
no, it totally
off the
teaches those like
project.
teaching
Good
and
resume building.
confidence
Yeah.
and all that stuff that you could take into other jobs that don't just apply to this field.
Yeah, so I guess, and this isn't for anyone in particular, but just kind of like round circle, whoever wants to answer. What has been like your biggest struggle in working in this job? I know most of you worked this summer, some of you started after summer, so from the time that you each individually started, what has been like the biggest struggle that you've reached in, like, I guess, not struggle, but like your biggest learning curve so far to the job?
I would say with mine, it was definitely just the learning curve in general, because I'm from Plymouth and I've lived in the city my whole life, just living in town. I've never worked a lot with chainsaws, weed whackers, doing any of this kind of stuff, and just getting into it is definitely a struggle, but the crews that is around me helped me a lot, which is very grateful. I'm very grateful for that.
For me, it was the mechanical stuff. I've always been more of the work with your hands kind of guy. Give me simple tools, I can make it work. But to try and pull the chainsaw apart, clean it, and put it back together, that took time. And it's something that it's not so easy to teach all the time. So trying to get other people to understand that is also a big part of the problem, because we have to teach people who come in after us. It's part of the work to learn, is you have to learn so you can teach. And not knowing from the beginning makes it a little harder at the end.
Yeah, I believe it. I remember when you were teaching me how to use the leaf blower, and you're like, you have to check for gas. So we opened it, and gas exploded everywhere. You're like, yep, there's gas. And we shut it. Yeah, I could see how that would be a major learning curve.
Yeah.
For sure. I still don't know how to use a leaf blower. I think I used it. Everyone was like, you did it wrong. I'm like, oh shoot. That's awesome. Well, I feel like you guys have gotten really good at facing those challenges head on and being able to make it work, and still, having the ability to teach on that, even if it's still learning curve yourself to teach. What has been some of your guys' favorite parts about working in the crew so far?
I think like building like a relationship with everybody as like a team. That way, like, it doesn't matter what like truck we go into or anything. Like at the end of the day, we're all on a crew and we all like get along and make jokes.
Yeah.
I would have to agree
That's
with
my
that.
favorite part.
Rosie nailed it right on the dot for me. I like the fact that like we can all joke around with each other, and just we know we're joking despite what we say. So
Yeah. It's definitely like a sense of family. Aww.
The kinship is a really big part for me. My personal favorite is the hard work. I enjoy physical labor. You can ask any of them, you'll see me out there with a Pulaski over any other wood cutting tool any day, just because I enjoy it more. And this job provides that kind of outlet for the energy that I have, and it makes the job much more enjoyable.
Oh yeah.
The people around just make it that much easier.
And you guys put in some hard work too. I know we went out that one afternoon, and it was only for like 3 hours. And I remember telling Rosie, I'm like, how do you do this every day? And then you don't go home, you don't go straight to bed? Like, you guys just keep
Sometimes
living
you
your
do.
life? Oh my gosh.
Other than some days.
Sometimes you get that one.
Yeah, there were days when I'd bring Gavin, I'd pick him up, and we'd head home, and he would be asleep in the car.
Yeah.
When we got home. Like, how did you? I'm like, geez, you're tired. So, I guess my next question would be, why do you guys feel that like this work is important? I guess like how do you kind of find value in the work that you're doing?
Well, it's a learning experience, and it's definitely developing on our skills, and we're definitely learning a lot. And also, it's for an important cause. Like, we don't want our houses to burn on fire, so we want to help preserve everyone else's around us. I think that's a very important part for me.
Yeah.
Ecologically, we do a lot for the environment by removing dead and decaying shrubbery and other detrimental stuff to the environment. By removing that, it leaves more room for the thriving stuff to grow. Makes it better in general, just for not only the people who live there, but for the town having better plant life. Just better all around for everybody.
No, totally. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, you're good.
Going off of what Jesse said, just yeah, like he was saying, it makes the trees like a lot healthier as long as we're doing everything that we're supposed to the right way. It helps the trees out to get all that extra stuff off so that they can focus all their energy into growing and getting bigger and stronger, and you know, not having those ladder fuels to burn up all the stuff that's trying to get bigger, and so that'll help it grow too, it not catching on fire. But also we're just filling a need in the community. Like the guy up in Chiloquin, he was trying to get someone for 3 years to come out and help him with his property and hasn't had any luck. And now finally with us, we're able to get that done for him. And it's nice to be able to, you know, just kind of fill that need where we can.
Well, that's a lot. That property is huge.
Yeah, no, it's a lot to commit to. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that we were willing enough that we got a grant for a third crew to help us go out there and do that. Like we made it work, we made it happen. We're doing it. It's good stuff.
Well, there's a lot of community betterment that we're getting out of doing this. I don't think there's been any project that we haven't been on that like the owners haven't been grateful.
Yeah.
Like they're super ecstatic just to have the work that we've done. You know, even if we can't do the amount that they want done, we still have to fit within our parameters, and they're still super excited to have it done.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think I felt that reverberated off of it too. And that was my follow-up question actually, was like how you guys like working with all the different people that you're meeting in the community. I mean, you know, you mentioned like being able to grow our community ecologically, but like what about, you know, your relationships that you guys are building within the community?
I feel like it helps give us a lot more opportunities for things. So like at this job, I've been given more opportunities for like jobs and just having more experience in that. And so I feel like meeting with other people, you get to see what they do and like whether or not you take an interest.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because like opens up the community to know what IYS does more than just, you know, Exeter's house and John's house. I think it kind of opens their eyes to IYS is more than just this organization, it does this too.
Yeah.
And opens up the crew members' eyes to like just like interacting with people in the community and doing all that kind of stuff and having good relationships with them and being flexible with what they want and where they live and the challenges of the land that they live on. Like we've been on some super crazy hilly ones, and then also some ones that are just totally flat, and like the stuff we need to move way over there and we need to get it way over here. Like there's just all kinds of new challenges that we get by being on the different properties, let alone the fact that like we're able to interact with the community and have all these other benefits from it.
And not to mention like the promotional bits. I mean, people love our work, and they tell us they would tell others that. And then there's people who see our work want to join. I've spread the word around, and I've got a couple friends who would like to work at this organization. It's just a matter of getting them here, getting things working so that they can get here. Because I mean, not everybody has the same capacity, and that's one thing I like about this job, is it shows that to everybody that you can get a lot from people who need the help.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I would agree with that very much. And it's fun to me to see. You know, I had so many conversations today with all the different managers, and they're like, well, this is what we think is happening, but hearing it from you guys in your perspective is really cool, because it makes me feel like, okay, yeah, we do know what we're talking about when we're talking amongst managers, and it kind of puts it back into retrospective, like what we actually are doing out in the community too.
So as you guys know, IYS is a nonprofit. Yeah. Do you guys kind of want to like, and this is very much just a discussion piece for anyone to have like their own answer to, but do you guys want to kind of tell me a little bit more about what that means to be nonprofit? Like, do you guys know what that means to be a nonprofit? And how would you describe a nonprofit? No one knows.
I've heard about it, it's just a matter of recalling what I know. Nonprofits, from what I understand, it's similar to charity in a sense. We aren't taking any of the direct money that we're receiving for doing this job. It's going back into the community to help the community. We're just the middleman.
Yeah. And you had brought up a good point too, where it's money going back into the organization.
And it's meant to be a charity. We're not trying to make money in this. We're trying to help improve people's lives and improve their surroundings. And they're also helping our lives, trying to get us more connections, learning experience, and trying to get us into different fields that we wouldn't expect to go into.
No, totally. Just like Jesse said, like basically nonprofits are a middleman to get resources from a place that has them to a place that doesn't have them. It's like a nice little, at least in our case.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely, you guys. Yeah, and I would say like all those statements are very true. I think too, like another point to make on it is that a lot of times nonprofits, or well, in our case, I should say, for nonprofit, we don't charge for our services. You know, when we're going out there, we're not saying, okay, for us to do these 25 acres, we're gonna need you to pay up $25,000. No, we're doing it because we want to. We want to be a community supporter. And so because we are not charging for our services, we get the funding for our services from grants and from donors in the community. And that's a really big one, is the donors that we get in our community. So the last question I have for you guys is, why do you think people should donate to IYS?
Because it helps more than just us. You know, there's Exodus House with kids that are, you know, too young to help themselves, so it provides a shelter for them. And like I've been at Exodus House several times, and like if I didn't have Exodus House, I would have been on the streets or other places. And you know, we're more than just IYS, like someone else has said. And we're John's house, we're Exodus House, we're thriving to become more, and without that we can't have.
To me, one of the best reasons for people to donate to IYS is that it helps us to help other people by giving us what we need to do our job, fuel everything that we're doing. It makes it so that we can help everybody else who needs help and get more people to come in to this job to keep helping.
Yeah. None of the stuff that we do is cheap. A lot of our chainsaws are very expensive. A lot of our tools are very expensive. Even our clothing that we have to wear to be outside doing this kind of work is very expensive. And just having that money to help us is very important for us. And
It just keeps the machine going.
yeah, it keeps it going, and it helps us get more people involved and doing more projects and doing more places to help deforest.
That's very true. That's awesome. Did any of you guys have any last comments that you want to say? Nothing to add? Well, thank you guys so much for letting me interview you. It has been my pleasure to come here and talk to you guys. And
Not a problem.
I appreciate it. I appreciate all of your guys' help in doing these wild, crazy projects that I always spring on you at the last minute. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Of course.
I am joined now by Nicholas Heneisen, the Work2Learn Director of Indigo Youth Services. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good today. How about you?
Good. Dying, but I'm getting there. So Nick, when did you start officially at Indigo Youth Services?
February 14th.
February 14th?
This year, yeah.
Oh my gosh, on Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Wow. And you did not start originally with Work2Learn. You started at Exodus House, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so how long were you at Exodus House before you switched over to Work2Learn?
I was there for right around a month.
About a month, and then we saw your talents and switched you over to Work2Learn.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
So can you explain to people who maybe don't quite know yet what that program is, a little bit more about the program?
Sure. Basically what we do in Work2Learn is we have partnerships with various mostly conservation related organizations, the Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, the Oregon Department of Forestry, and we have grants either through them or through other sources such as Oregon Conservation Corps and Oregon Youth Corps that allow us to hire crews of youth and young adults to do conservation work, and they're treated as employees. They make a wage. But on top of that, they're also learning hard and soft job skills. They're learning just like the respective jobs, as well as how to act and behave in a workplace. If they're high school age, they get high school credit for it. They get elective credits, and yeah, we're just kind of preparing them for the real world beyond high school and college.
Yeah, and your program has grown significantly.
Yes, last year, I was not here last summer, but the summer of 21, but I believe there were 3 crews, and then this summer there were twice that. There were 6 crews, and we had gotten a substantial grant from the Oregon Conservation Corps that allowed us to expand almost exponentially as far as what we could do with our crews as well. So it's been an exciting experience. It's been a lot, very, but it's been really good, and just seeing the difference we're making. It's been pretty great.
And can you explain to people, because last year it was known as the summer work crew, and that was the program, was that it was the summer work job where kids come in and learn those soft skills and those hard skills of conservation work and then go back to school. Can you explain why we changed from the summer work crew to Work2Learn?
Yeah. With this Oregon Conservation Corps grant that we were given, it allowed for 2 crews to go year-round doing fire mitigation work in partnership with the Oregon Department of Forestry, which basically they're doing they're working with chainsaws, weed eaters, and various other tools to create defensible space around houses, like high-risk fire areas within what's called the wildland urban interface. And yeah, it's going year-round, so they're able to work all year. We also provide various training for them, and on top of that, we even expanded within that program. We were able to add a 3rd crew, which we're putting together right now, and a part-time crew. So now we're about to have basically 3.5 Oregon Conservation Corps crews, as well as we're starting an after-school program. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have a culinary club and which does, we're going to utilize our commercial kitchen that we have in our office, and we're going to be teaching high school age students how to basically culinary skills. Our coordinator is actually going to specialize in how to do a lot with as little as possible, like food boxes, stuff that you would get from food banks, and or be able to afford with food stamps, and be able to make delicious meals on kind of what you have. The other clubs, the Conservation Club, which kind of is a feeder into our various conservation Work2Learn programs. Mm-hmm. The high school youth will learn various conservation related skills, and we'll have guest speakers from again, Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, Oregon Department of Forestry, to kind of build that knowledge so that if they so choose, they can go into one of our summer programs or Conservation Corps program, and ultimately possibly into one of these fields is what we're hoping for.
That's awesome. And you've been here since February, and you've done a lot since February. So can you explain a little bit maybe about some of the challenges that you have faced in taking on what was a small program that is now a very, very big program and a very core part of what IYS is doing right now?
Absolutely. The biggest challenge really is hiring, and it's not even like the youth want to work. We're getting plenty of youth, but getting crew leads out there to work with these youth, those who have skills in these fields or skills working with youth and young adults, that's been huge. trying to get the right people for the job, working with these youth and young adults.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's been an issue, not just for IYS, but in the community in general, trying to find people and hire. I know I've even discussed in some classes where they're calling this the Great Resignation, and that's put a real big damper on the abilities that we have too, because of the lack of leaders out there willing to lead. And so with that challenge in mind, what has been sort of like the best part of growing this program in the last year?
Really, it's just being able to serve a greater part of the community, with like I said, the youth out there. You're getting tons of applications for youth and young adults that want to be in these programs. So being able to expand and serve more of the youth out there is awesome. And then those youth in our programs then being able to go out and serve our community in these various conservation programs and otherwise, it's just been awesome seeing that and seeing seeing some of these kids, young adults, kind of spark their passion in these various fields.
Yeah. And so I know that you have a few different programs running right now, but this summer we had more crews than I think we've ever had before.
Mm-hmm.
How many youth and young adults do you think were in the program during the summertime?
Oh, I had the number down. It was something like 32, 33, right around there.
That's a lot. And did all of them get a high school credit?
Not all of them. Some of them were out of high school at that point. Some of them didn't necessarily need the credit, but we did have a small handful that applied to get that credit and went and spoke to their school, and they sent us the proper forms, and we were able to get that for them.
That's awesome. And the program now serves ages 14 to 26, correct?
Yes.
Yes. 26.
Yeah, 26 is the upper limit. Yeah, the crews that we have going year round are mostly like 16 to 26, just because of the need for people who can run power equipment. At 16, they can run weed eaters. Once they're 18, they can run chainsaws. The summer crews go as young as 14 because we have crews that don't necessarily need to run the power tools.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the crews that run just in the summertime?
We have the Oregon Youth Corps, which is kind of a sister program to the Oregon Conservation Corps. It's but it's targeted more to younger, like high school age. Oregon Conservation Corps is older high school to adult, it's more focused on getting the youth interested in these conservation type stuff. Hopefully, like within in the county, we there's this initiative that they're getting ready to build a new playground in Moore Park. And it was supposed to happen last year, but it's actually going to happen from the sounds of this coming summer. and they're going to be able to help build this this ADA, I think it's ADA compliant playground. So it's really exciting.
It's not just compliant, it's like accessible.
Yeah,
like it's
exactly.
like got the wheelchair slides.
It's
and
really
all that
cool. I saw
stuff.
the video. It's awesome.
Yeah.
We have a Bureau of Land Management crew. They do both work with the Bureau of Land Management as well as with the city water. We have a contract with the city water department. With the Bureau of Land Management, they work mostly at Wood River Wetland, doing various work around there. Like this past summer, they were doing a lot of work with the gardens. They have native plant gardens there where they did a lot of mulching and weeding and that kind of stuff.
Is that the crew too that got to do a lot of botany work?
They did some botany work.
Yeah.
They were there for a couple of talks with the botanist with the Bureau of Land Management. They also worked at the Topsy campground, Reservoir Campground. And then they did weed eating for the city water towers, which is kind of goes hand in hand with fire mitigation work. Keep all the so yeah, our Forest Service crew is up mostly around Sprague River, Bly, Chiloquin area. They did a lot of weeding of invasive plants up in that area. Kind of prescribed weeding. They had particular areas that they were supposed to keep count of how many of these invasive thistles that were growing out there, and weed them and record it for the Forest Service. And it's kind of been ongoing for several years now, so they can get an idea of the spread of these invasive plants.
Yeah. So I guess my follow-up would be like, you have, and most of these are running in the summertime. Off time is mainly the OCC crew that is doing all these projects, but you have all these crews that are out there, and they're not, conservation isn't just one thing. They're not going out and doing one thing. They're all doing something very different from each other, and they all have different, takeaways from the work that they're doing. Why do you think it's important that work is being done?
It's for a number of reasons, whether it be promoting the growth of native plants, to fire mitigation, to protect our own homes and our own livelihoods. Conservation is important for so many different reasons, and it's vital to have that community involvement there, and that education, that knowledge, and kind of spread throughout the community.
And I would also, touch on, I feel this community is very big on not just conservation work, but being a community, and with it, with this program specifically, these youth are getting to meet a lot of liaisons that otherwise they wouldn't have an in to meet, and so I think that's definitely very important. I also, looking back at some of the records and some of the things that IYS has done in the past, Work2Learn used to be a big program of IYS's back in the 90s and the early 2000s, and then it had slipped into the summer work crew. It is now back to being Work2Learn again. And in the past, IYS as a Work2Learn program has built houses, they've renovated houses, they've helped in all these really big projects that I think a lot of times get overlooked. How have you, since having this program in the past year, been able to start working with partners to create this sort of legacy for the youth that are coming into the programs, and what are some of the projects, I guess, that they have been working on or continue to work on too? I know we have some that are planned that haven't yet been worked on, and we have some that are in the works right now, and then we had some we did this summer. So can you just kind of put us in on what those projects entail?
Sure. I can speak a little bit on this. First, I will say that a lot of this I'm kind of just stepping into. It was kind of just a stroke of luck that I ended up in this position, as it was in a period of growth, and I'm kind of honored to kind of be heading this off. But I do, just to speak on some of the programs that we have going on. I mean, we have the ADA playground. We have a partnership with the Wing Watchers Association, where we are slowly kind of building a partnership with them and working with them in various respects regarding the Wing Watcher Trail, and helping them. This year we're going to actually be doing a lot of events where we're setting up booths with them and working with them to get youth involved in conservation and just awareness of I'm so terrible at this.
Well, and even I remember this summer, we talked about the bird guy, and we were able to help the bird guy of City Parks, who his name is Jerry.
Yep.
Yes, and I know I worked with Jerry in a different project that I had done, but it was really cool to be able to see that project sort of blossom into this project, where our youth and our crew members were going out and helping them clean out some of the birdhouses of endangered species that are native to Klamath Falls.
Yeah, that was really great, and I'm hoping to continue that partnership as well, because that was a really neat experience, and I ended up learning a lot about the native bird population as well, especially being someone who's new here. I had no idea. So that was a great experience. And it's kind of funny, he ended up retaining the nickname the bird guy through our partnership after your work with him. That was really good. We have an ongoing partnership as well with the Klamath Community College, which we weren't able to get out there as much this year, but we have a McKinney-Vento crew that does a lot of work with them, kind of getting some of our youth onto a college campus and getting them just used to seeing themselves on there. A lot of these youth are coming from families who've maybe their parents and grandparents have never been to college. They may be the first generation that hasn't shot at it. And they'll just do work around the college, whether it be landscaping, painting, that kind of stuff. But then we give them learning opportunities through the college as well, whether it be the film camp that was hosted over this past summer, which I believe was a partnership with KCC and the Ross Ragland, or at least it was done at Ross.
Yes.
Ragland. Yes. So we just try to provide those opportunities for our youth. And I've already spoken on basically what we've been doing with OCC. We've been brainstorming lots of ideas about the future. You had spoken about how previously the Work2Learn program had done work building houses and things like that. I would love to get back into that. Out in Georgia, where I used to live, it was really big. What's it called? God help me with this. Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah.
Habitat for Humanity.
And we don't have that here.
Yeah, I think it's around. I've heard but it's not really as big of a deal out here. But I would love to see. I would love to get a crew together, or a couple crews together that could help with housing for the homeless population out here, which is a big deal in this county from what I've seen. So yeah, that would just be a great way to give back to the community and teach these youth some really good skills as far as construction.
Well, I think too, the important thing to think about with this program is, yeah, we're doing conservation work, and yeah, the work is very, specific to each group, but the youth are learning more about their community by engaging in the program and in the different crews that they're working in. They're learning about, oh my gosh, those bird populations I had no idea existed here. They're learning about, the different birds that come into Klamath and are a really big part of our community, and they're also learning about the different species that live here, and what is invasive and what is not. And they're meeting all these different liaisons that are very big in the community. And so I think it's definitely, it's very inward focused on how do we get these youth more engaged with their community. And I know from, my own experience, I had a cousin that was in the program, and when he came in, he was very shy and very bad at, being able to talk to people. And being able to engage in that social interaction. And since coming out of the program, it has been so different seeing how he engages with people and how he built a community through the program itself. So that has been really cool to see. Looking back at you and your experience, I know that you came to this program because you were a participant at IYS prior to being a worker. I've employee. That's the word I was looking for. So prior to being an employee, you had originally came to IYS because a school had actually told you about our services, correct?
Yeah, it was Shasta Elementary, and I can't remember their name for the life of me. But yeah, when I just moved out here in January, and we kind of had a rough time. We were living out of a motel and just trying to find work and make ends meet. And yeah, someone at Shasta Elementary had recommended that I try to seek resources through IYS. And so yeah, I was basically a client of IYS and was kind of receiving help. And then I ended up getting offered a job, and things kind of took off from there. It's been a great experience.
So do you think that, and the reason I ask that is because I think every conversation I've had so far today is really talked about the importance of that. And do you think that in, starting off as a recipient of those services and now being an employee, giving those services out, has helped you be able to connect more, further with your crew leaders and your crew members, and not only offering them the service that is Work2Learn, but being able to say, hey, we have additional services if you need it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I try to stress that to our crew leaders as well, that even though our department is Work2Learn, we are IYS. We have all these other services that we can provide if they notice any of our youth or young adults in our program that are having trouble in a particular area, that we potentially have the ability to help them with that. And even if IYS itself doesn't have those specific resources, we have so many partners within the community that are just awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great being able to have that and just have the knowledge of those resources to provide to them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And so the other part of that I would ask too, I know you've only been here since February, but that still, it's almost a full year that you've been with the organization. And that's a lot of people to connect with in a year's time. And so I'm just wondering, I guess, if you've had any moment with crew leaders, crew members, even the youth at Exodus House that you worked with, that you had an aha moment where you were like, oh yeah, this is why I work here?
Oh, I've had a few, but you'll have to give me a minute. I gotta think of a good one.
No, you're good. Give me a moment to cough and drink.